"You'll get nothing from us," my daughter shouted. But minutes later, her face turned pale. Part 1. The Unraveling. Some moments change everything. Some words once spoken can never be taken back. I'm about to tell you about the day my daughter's cruelty toward her father finally caught up with her, and how a single envelope turned our entire world upside down. But before I get there, you need to understand how we got to that breaking point. Because wealth, I've learned, doesn't just buy comfort. Sometimes it buys the rope that hangs you. My name is Diana Morrison, and at 52 years old, I thought I had seen every shade of human nature. I built a commercial real estate empire from nothing, clawing my way up from a 2-bedroom apartment in South Chicago to a mansion in the suburbs with more rooms than I could count. My husband Marcus and I had created the American dream, the kind of success story that magazines wanted to write about, the kind that made other Black families point to us and say, "See, it's possible." But here's what those magazines never tell you. Success can poison the very people you're trying to protect with it. It was a Thursday afternoon in late September when everything came crashing down. The kind of crisp autumn day that should have been beautiful, with golden leaves scattered across our circular driveway, and the smell of someone burning wood in a fireplace somewhere down the street. I was standing in our living room, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the manicured garden Marcus spent his weekends tending. That garden was his sanctuary, the place where the man who had sacrificed everything for our family could finally breathe. I was watching him through those windows, seeing the way his shoulders had started to stoop more in recent months, the way his salt and pepper hair had gone almost entirely silver. He was only 55, but he looked older, tired, worn down by something I had been refusing to see clearly. That's when I heard her voice, sharp and cutting as broken glass. "Dad, I already told you I'm not interested in your opinion about my career choices. You wouldn't understand anyway. You've never had real ambition." My daughter Chelsea, 26 years old, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, her designer handbag dangling from one elbow. She was beautiful. I won't deny that. She had inherited my high cheekbones and Marcus's warm brown eyes, though hers had grown cold in recent years. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant twist, and she wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Marcus's first car. Marcus stood there, his hands still dirty from the garden, and I saw him flinch. Actually flinch, like she'd struck him. "Chelsea, I just thought," he started. "You thought what?" "That I should take your advice. Dad, you've been a stay-at-home parent for the last 20 years. What do you know about building a career in the modern world?" I should have intervened right then. I should have stepped between them and shut down that disrespect immediately. But I was frozen, watching a pattern I had let develop for far too long, a pattern I had been complicit in creating. Marcus's voice was quiet when he spoke again. "I was just saying that the investment banking position might not be the best fit for you, sweetheart. You've always been so passionate about environmental law. Remember how you used to talk about wanting to make a difference?" Chelsea laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That was childish idealism, Dad. I've grown up. I have student loans to pay off, a lifestyle to maintain. Not everyone can afford to spend their days playing in the dirt like you do." The way she said "playing in the dirt" made my stomach turn, as if the man who had raised her, who had sacrificed his own architectural career to be there for every school play, every soccer game, every fever and nightmare and heartbreak, was nothing more than a hobbyist wasting time. "Chelsea," I finally found my voice stepping into the hallway. "That's enough." She turned to me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, shame maybe, or fear that I was finally going to draw a line. But then her expression hardened. "Mom, I'm sorry, but someone needs to say it. Dad has been living off your success for decades. He has no idea what it's like to actually compete in the real world. I love him, but I'm not going to let his limited perspective hold me back." Marcus didn't say anything. He just turned and walked back toward the garden, his shoulders hunched like he was trying to make himself smaller, trying to take up less space in his own home. And I, God forgive me, I let him go. "We'll talk about this later," I told Chelsea, my voice sharp. "Right now, I have a conference call." It was a coward's retreat, and we both knew it. Chelsea shrugged, already pulling out her phone. "Whatever. I need to get back to the city anyway. I just came by to pick up that check you promised me for my security deposit." Of course. She had come for money. That's what most of her visits had become lately. Brief appearances to collect checks, to ask for help with this expense or that investment, always with an air of entitlement that made me wonder where we had gone wrong. I wrote her the check, a sum that would have fed a family of 4 for months, and watched her leave without saying goodbye to her father. The sound of her car, that sleek BMW we'd bought her for her 25th birthday, echoed in the driveway, and then she was gone. The house felt too quiet after that. I didn't go to Marcus right away. I told myself I needed to make that conference call, to review contracts, to handle the 1,000 little fires that always seemed to be burning in my business. But the truth was, I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know how to fix the damage that had been accumulating for years, damage I had helped create through my own silence. When I finally went outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Marcus was kneeling in his garden, but he wasn't working. He was just sitting there, his hands resting on his thighs, staring at nothing. "Marcus," I said softly. He didn't turn around. "You know what hurts the most?" His voice was thick. "It's not that she thinks I'm a failure, it's that she might be right." "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true, isn't it? I gave up my career to raise our kids. I made myself small so you could be big, and now look at what I've raised. A daughter who's ashamed of me and a son who barely calls unless he needs something." Our son Tyler, 28, was working in Silicon Valley, caught up in the startup world, always too busy for anything but quick texts and occasional video calls that felt more obligatory than genuine. "You raised good kids," I said, but the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. Marcus finally turned to look at me, and I saw tears on his cheeks. Marcus, who had always been the strong one, the steady one, the emotional bedrock of our family, was crying. Did I, Diana? Did I really? Or did I raise entitled, selfish adults who see kindness as weakness and sacrifice as stupidity? I sat down beside him on the cold ground, not caring about my expensive slacks getting dirty. They're going through a phase, they'll grow out of it. Will they? Or is this who they are now? Who we made them? I didn't have an answer for that. We sat there in silence as the sky darkened and the automatic lights flickered on around the garden. I thought about all the choices we'd made, all the roads we'd taken to get to this moment. I thought about the early days, when we were young and broke and so deeply in love that nothing else mattered. Marcus and I had met in college, both of us scholarship kids at Northwestern, both of us determined to prove we belonged in spaces that didn't always want us. He was studying architecture, creating beautiful designs that blended functionality with soul. I was studying business, already dreaming of building something that would last. We got married the summer after graduation, a small ceremony in my mother's backyard with homemade food and borrowed chairs. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that felt like enough. Then came the struggle. The years of me working 80-hour weeks trying to get my real estate business off the ground. Marcus working at a firm where his designs were consistently passed over in favor of less innovative work from white colleagues. The exhaustion, the stress, the mounting bills. When I got pregnant with Tyler, we had to make a choice. Daycare costs would eat up most of Marcus's salary, and my business was just starting to gain traction. I was landing bigger clients, making connections, building something real. "I'll stay home," Marcus had said, "just for a few years until things stabilize." A few years turned into 2 decades, At first, it was supposed to be temporary, but my business kept growing, kept demanding more of my time and energy. And Marcus, bless him, he made it work. He made staying home look easy, though I know now it never was. He was the one who managed the household, who made sure everyone was fed and clothed and loved. He was the one who went to parent-teacher conferences while I was in board meetings. He was the one who stayed up all night with sick kids while I was flying to close deals in other cities. And slowly, without either of us quite noticing, the balance of power in our marriage shifted. My success became our identity. My work became the center of our family's universe, and Marcus, who had once been my partner, my equal, became something else, something lesser in the eyes of our children, and I'm ashamed to admit, sometimes in my own eyes too. I thought about all of this as we sat in that garden, and I felt something break open inside me. A realization I had been avoiding for too long. "I failed you," I whispered. Marcus turned to me, surprised. "What?" "I failed you. I let them treat you like this. Worse, I've treated you like this. I've acted like your contributions to our family don't matter because they can't be measured in dollar signs." "Diana." "No, let me finish. You gave up your dreams for us. You put your career on hold, your ambitions, your own identity. And instead of honoring that sacrifice, instead of making sure our children understood the value of what you did, I let them see you as less than. I let them think that staying home, raising them, building a home, was somehow inferior to what I was doing." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I made my choice willingly. I don't regret raising our children, Diana. I regret that they don't seem to understand what love looks like, what real sacrifice means. Then we need to teach them. How? They're adults now. They are who they are." I thought about that, about Chelsea's cold eyes and entitled demands, about Tyler's distant phone calls and constant excuses, about the 2 children we had raised with every advantage, who somehow had grown up to be people I barely recognized. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we have to try. We have to find a way to show them that wealth without character is worthless, that success without compassion is just another kind of failure." Marcus nodded slowly, but I could see he didn't really believe it was possible. He had been beaten down too many times, his spirit slowly eroded by years of small cuts and casual dismissals. We went inside eventually, both of us cold and stiff from sitting on the ground. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to Marcus's breathing and thinking about everything that had gone wrong, about the moment we had lost our way as a family. I thought I had been giving my children everything by building wealth, by creating security, by making sure they would never struggle the way Marcus and I had struggled. But somewhere along the line, comfort had curdled into entitlement. Privilege had become poison. The next morning, I was in my home office going through emails when I heard raised voices downstairs. My heart sank. Chelsea was back, and she was arguing with Marcus again. I moved to the landing where I could hear but couldn't be seen, hating myself for eavesdropping in my own home, but needing to understand the full scope of what was happening. "I'm not asking for your permission, Dad. I'm telling you what I'm doing." Chelsea's voice was sharp with irritation. "I understand that, sweetheart. I'm just concerned. This man you're talking about moving in with, you've only known him for 3 months. Oh, so now you're the expert on relationships. That's rich, coming from someone who's been dependent on his wife for his entire adult life." I heard Marcus's sharp intake of breath even from where I stood. "Chelsea, that's not fair. Your mother and I are partners. We made decisions together about what was best for our family." "Right. You decided to be a house husband while Mom became a multimillionaire. Very equal partnership." "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I? I know that Mom pays for everything. This house, the cars, my apartment, Tyler's trust fund. I know that you have no money of your own, no career, no independence. I know that if Mom decided to leave you tomorrow, you'd have nothing." The cruelty in her words took my breath away. But what came next was even worse. And here's what else I know, Dad. When you're gone, when you're not around to get in the way anymore, Tyler and I inherit everything. Mom's will leaves everything to her children. So your opinions, your concerns, your outdated values, they don't matter. You're temporary. We're permanent. There was a long silence. Then Marcus spoke, and his voice was so quiet I almost couldn't hear it. Is that really what you think of me? That I'm just in the way? That I'm temporary? I think you're a nice man who made himself irrelevant, and I think it's time you accepted that. I started down the stairs, ready to unleash years of pent-up anger on my daughter, but before I could reach them, the doorbell rang. Marcus moved to answer it, probably grateful for the interruption. I stayed on the stairs, watching. It was a courier with a large manila envelope. Marcus signed for it and closed the door. He looked at the return address and his face went pale. "What is it?" Chelsea asked, her tone still sharp. Marcus didn't answer. He just stood there, staring at the envelope like it contained a bomb. "Dad, what is it?" He looked up at her, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt. Something harder, something final. "It's from my father's estate attorney." Chelsea rolled her eyes. "Your dad? The one who abandoned you when you were 10? The one you haven't seen in decades? What could he possibly have to leave you?" Marcus's father, Samuel Morrison, had been a complicated figure in our lives, or rather, a complicated absence. He had left Marcus and his mother when Marcus was young, disappearing into a life that Marcus knew little about. There had been a few awkward attempts at reconnection over the years, phone calls on birthdays that grew less frequent before stopping altogether. Marcus's mother had raised him alone, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and she had died 5 years ago, never forgiving her ex-husband for his abandonment. We had learned of Samuel's death 3 months earlier through a notification from his attorney. Marcus hadn't even gone to the funeral. He said there was nothing there to grieve, just the ghost of a relationship that had never really existed. But now there was this envelope. Marcus opened it with shaking hands. I came down the stairs, unable to stay away any longer. Chelsea stood with her arms crossed, impatient and dismissive, clearly ready to get back to her argument. I watched Marcus's face as he read the letter inside. I watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched his eyes go wide, watched his mouth open in shock. "Marcus?" I said softly. "What is it?" He looked up at me, then at Chelsea, then back down at the papers in his hands. "My father," he said slowly, "owned property, a lot of property, commercial real estate across 3 states. He had businesses, investments, and he left it all to me." Chelsea laughed. "Right. The deadbeat dad who abandoned you left you a fortune. That's a good one, Dad." But Marcus wasn't laughing. He handed me the letter with shaking hands. I read it quickly, my professional eye catching the important details. Property deeds, business holdings, investment portfolios, bank accounts, and at the bottom, a net worth estimation that made my breath catch. $47 million. Marcus's father, the man who had abandoned him, who had never paid child support, who had been absent for every important moment of Marcus's life, had been wealthy. Very wealthy, and he had left everything to the son he had abandoned. "This can't be real," Chelsea said, but her voice had changed. The certainty was gone, replaced by something that sounded like fear. "It's real," I said quietly. "I know this law firm. They're one of the best estate attorneys in the state. They don't handle small accounts." Marcus was still staring at the papers, his face unreadable. He owned buildings in Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit. He had a successful import business. He invested in tech stocks in the 90s and made a fortune. He looked up at me. He was rich, Diana. He was rich the whole time. The implications were staggering. Samuel Morrison had abandoned his family and then built wealth, never sending a penny to support the child he'd left behind, never reaching out to help when he knew Marcus and his mother were struggling. And now, in death, He had left it all to the son he'd ignored in life. It was guilt money, conscience money, a deathbed attempt to buy forgiveness for a lifetime of absence. But it was also, undeniably, a fortune. Chelsea's face had gone from flushed to pale. She was staring at her father with an expression I'd never seen before. Calculations running behind her eyes, reassessments being made in real time. "Dad," she started, her voice suddenly softer, sweeter. "I didn't mean what I said before. You know I love you. I was just upset. I wasn't thinking. Stop." Marcus's voice cut through her words like a knife. "Just stop." He looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something break in his face. Not anger. Worse. Disappointment so deep it looked like grief. "You told me I had nothing," he said quietly. "You told me I was irrelevant, temporary, in the way. You said that when I'm gone, you and Tyler would inherit everything from your mother, and my opinions wouldn't matter because I have no money, no power, no value." "Dad, I didn't—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word. And you know what? You were right. I don't have money. I gave up my career, my earning potential, everything I might have built for myself. I did that because I thought being your father was more important than being rich." He held up the papers from the envelope. "But now I do have money, quite a lot of it, apparently. And you know what that means, Chelsea? It means I finally get to see who you really are. Because 5 minutes ago, when you thought I had nothing, you told me to my face that I don't matter. And now, when you know I have something, I can see the gears turning in your head. I can see you recalculating my value. That's not fair. You'll get nothing from us." Those were your words yesterday, Chelsea. When I tried to give you advice, you made it clear that you didn't need anything from me, that I had nothing to offer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave now. And you're going to think very carefully about who you want to be and what kind of relationship, if any, we're going to have going forward. Chelsea opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life." I watched this unfold with a mixture of pride and pain. Pride that Marcus was finally standing up for himself. Pain for the family that was fracturing right before my eyes. Chelsea looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Mom, say something. Tell him he's overreacting." I thought about all the times I had stayed silent, all the moments I had let Marcus be diminished, dismissed, disrespected, all the ways I had failed him by failing to defend him. "Your father is right," I said quietly. "You need to leave." Chelsea's face went through a series of emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, something that might have been the beginning of understanding. But it was too late. The damage was done. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Before she left, she turned back one more time. "You'll regret this," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. She sounded scared. "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I doubt it." The door closed behind her and the house fell silent. Marcus sank onto the couch, still holding those papers. I sat beside him, not sure what to say, not sure what this all meant. $47 million, he said wonderingly. "My father left me $47 million. How do you feel about that?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, angry, sad, confused, and if I'm honest, a little bit relieved. Relieved? For years, I've questioned whether I made the right choice. Whether giving up my career was the biggest mistake of my life, whether being a stay-at-home father made me less of a man, less worthy of respect. And our children, they've confirmed those fears. Every dismissive comment, every time they've treated me like I don't matter, it's been like a knife confirming that I made the wrong choice. He looked at the papers again. But now I have money, my own money. Not yours, not family money, not anything I need to ask for or justify. Mine. And you know what that means? What? It means I get to see whether people's respect for me changes based solely on the number in my bank account. It means I get to see who my children really are. Are they the kind of people who only value others based on wealth? Or is there something deeper there? Something real that we can salvage? I understood what he was saying, but it hurt. It hurt to realize that we had raised children who might fail that test, children who might prove to be exactly the shallow, materialistic people they had seemed to be that day. And us? I asked quietly. What does this mean for us? Marcus took my hand. I love you, Diana. I've loved you since we were 20 years old, and I know you love me. But we've let something toxic grow in our family. We've let wealth become our measure of worth. We've created an environment where a stay-at-home parent is seen as less than, where sacrifice is seen as weakness, where money is the only thing that matters. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough. We need to change. We need to fix this, if it can be fixed. We sat there for a long time, holding hands on the couch, thinking about the family we had built and the family we had lost somewhere along the way. Part 2, The Reckoning. The next few days were strange. Marcus went through the legal paperwork, meeting with his father's estate attorneys, trying to understand the full scope of what he had inherited. The numbers kept getting bigger. 47 million became 52 million once they factored in some additional holdings, properties, investments, a lifetime of wealth accumulated by a man who had walked away from his own family. I could see Marcus struggling with it. The money came with questions he didn't want to answer. Why had his father never helped when Marcus and his mother were struggling? Why had Samuel Morrison chosen wealth over family? Chosen to build an empire while his ex-wife worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table? But the money was here now, real and undeniable, sitting in bank accounts with Marcus's name on them. Chelsea called multiple times. At first, Marcus didn't answer, but she was persistent, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to apologetic to desperate. On the 4th day, he finally picked up. I was in the room and he put the phone on speaker so I could hear. Dad, thank God, I've been so worried. I need to talk to you. I'm listening. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I said terrible things, and I didn't mean any of them. You're an amazing father, and I love you so much. I was just stressed about work and money and everything, and I took it out on you, but I didn't mean it. Marcus's face was unreadable. What specifically didn't you mean, Chelsea? There was a pause. What? You said a lot of things. Which parts didn't you mean? When you said I was irrelevant? When you said I had nothing to offer? When you said Tyler and I would get everything when I'm gone and my opinions don't matter? Which of those things didn't you mean? All of them. Dad, I love you. I was just being awful. Were you? Or were you being honest? Because here's what I think, Chelsea. I think you meant every word. I think you've thought those things for years. The only thing that's changed is that now I have money, so suddenly I'm worth being nice to. That's not true, isn't it? If I hadn't inherited that money, if I was still just your stay-at-home dad with no wealth of my own, would you be calling me right now? Would you be apologizing? Silence on the other end of the line. That's what I thought, Marcus said quietly. Dad, please, I want to make this right. Then show me. Not with words, but with actions. Show me that you understand what you did wrong. Show me that you're capable of valuing people for more than their bank accounts. How? How do I do that? I don't know, Chelsea. That's something you need to figure out for yourself. He hung up. I reached over and squeezed his hand. That was brave. That was terrifying, he corrected. I just told my daughter that I don't trust her love for me. What kind of father does that? The kind who's been hurt too many times. The kind who deserves better. Tyler called that evening. We'd sent him a brief text letting him know about his grandfather's death and the inheritance. But we hadn't heard back until now. Hey, Dad, Mom, just calling to check in. Crazy news about Grandpa Samuel, huh? Tyler's voice was casual, Friendly. Marcus and I exchanged glances. It is, Marcus agreed. Did Chelsea tell you what happened? Yeah, she mentioned you guys had a fight or something. You know Chelsea, she can be a bit much sometimes. What exactly did she tell you? Just that she said some stuff she didn't mean and you kicked her out. She said you're being really harsh about it. Did she tell you what she said to me? Not specifically, but come on, Dad, she's your daughter. Whatever it was, I'm sure she didn't mean it. You know how she gets when she's stressed. Marcus closed his eyes. Tyler, do you know why I stayed home instead of pursuing my career? Sure, because it made financial sense. Mom was making more money, so you stayed home with us. Is that really all you think it was? Financial sense? Tyler sounded confused. I mean, yeah, what else would it be? Love, Marcus said simply. I stayed home because I loved you and your sister. Because I wanted to be there for you. Because I thought being present in your lives was more important than any career or money or ambition. Right, of course. I get that. Do you? Do you really? Because here's what I'm realizing, Tyler. I don't think either of you understands what I gave up. And more than that, I don't think either of you values what I did. I think you see my choice as weakness, as failure. Dad, that's not... Your sister told me to my face that I'm irrelevant, that I have nothing to offer, that when I'm gone, she and you will inherit everything from your mother, and my opinions won't matter because I have no money, no power, no value. Did she tell you that part? Tyler was quiet for a moment. She was upset. She didn't mean it. How do you know? Were you there? Did you hear the way she said it? The contempt in her voice? I know my sister. She loves you. Does she? Or does she love what she thinks I can do for her? Because the minute she found out I have money now, suddenly she's calling and apologizing and telling me how much she loves me. But when she thought I had nothing, I was just in the way. Dad, you're being unfair. Am I? Tyler, when was the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed something, not because it was a holiday or a birthday, but just because you wanted to hear my voice. Another silence. That's what I thought, Marcus said. You know what, son? I'm going to give you the same challenge I gave your sister. Show me that you value me for more than what I can do for you. Show me that you understand what sacrifice looks like, what real love looks like. And until you can do that, I think we need some distance. You're cutting me off? No, I'm giving you space to figure out what kind of man you want to be. Marcus ended the call and immediately turned off his phone. His hands were shaking. I can't believe I just did that, he said. I can. You're finally standing up for yourself. But they're my children, Diana. I raised them. How did I raise children who can't see what I gave up for them? That question haunted both of us. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into understanding his inheritance. He met with financial advisors, lawyers, accountants. He toured properties he now owned, walked through buildings that bore his father's fingerprints, but that Marcus had never known existed. One evening, he came home from one of these meetings with a strange look on his face. I found something, he said. What? He pulled out a folder. Letters. My father wrote me letters. Dozens of them over the years. The attorney had them in storage. Apparently, my father wrote me a letter every year on my birthday. He just never sent them. I felt my heart break for him. Why not? He said in the first few letters that he didn't feel like he had the right, that he had made his choice and he had to live with it. But he wanted me to know that he thought about me, that he followed my life from a distance, that he was proud of me. Marcus's voice cracked on that last word. He knew about my career, about giving it up. He knew about you, about the kids. He knew everything, Diana. He was watching the whole time, and he never reached out. I'm so sorry, Marcus. The last letter, the one he wrote right before he died, it's different. He said he realized too late that money can't buy back time, that he spent his whole life building wealth because he thought it would make him feel better about the family he abandoned. but it never did. He said he was leaving everything to me, not because he thought it would make up for what he did, but because he hoped I would use it better than he did, that I would remember what really matters. Marcus looked at me with tears in his eyes. He said, "You chose love over money, son. You chose your family over your career. You made the right choice, the one I was too weak to make. Don't let anyone, including your own children, tell you that what you did was worth less because it didn't come with a paycheck." I held him while he cried, this strong man who had borne so much for so long, finally letting himself break. "He saw it," Marcus said. "My own father, the man who abandoned me. He saw the value in what I did. Why can't my own children see it?" "They will," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "They have to." But days turned into weeks, and Chelsea and Tyler remained distant. Chelsea's apologies had turned to anger when Marcus didn't immediately forgive her. Tyler had gone silent altogether, apparently offended that his father had called him out. I watched Marcus struggle with it. Some days he seemed stronger, more certain that he'd done the right thing. Other days, the pain of being estranged from his children was almost too much to bear, and I struggled too. Because as much as I wanted to blame Chelsea and Tyler for their behavior, I knew I had played a role in creating it. I had allowed them to see their father as lesser. I had failed to model the respect he deserved. One night, about 6 weeks after the confrontation, Marcus and I were having dinner when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Diana, baby, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice troubled. "What's wrong, Mama?" "I ran into Chelsea today. She came by the church." My mother was a force of nature. A woman who had worked as a teacher for 40 years and who now spent her retirement volunteering at her church and organizing community events. She was beloved in our old neighborhood, a pillar of strength and wisdom. What did she want? She wanted to talk about you and Marcus. She said you two were being unreasonable, that you were cutting her off for no reason. She wanted me to talk to you, to convince you to forgive her. And what did you tell her? My mother was quiet for a moment. I told her I was ashamed of her. I almost dropped the phone. My mother wasn't one for harsh words, especially not with her grandchildren. "You what?" I told her the truth. I said that you and Marcus had given her and Tyler everything, and that Marcus specifically had sacrificed his own dreams to raise them. And I told her that if she couldn't see the value in what her father had done, then she had learned nothing from the life you'd given her. "Mama." Let me finish. I told her about how it was when you were growing up, how we didn't have money for new clothes, how you wore hand-me-downs and never complained, how you got yourself through school on scholarships and determination, how Marcus came from even less, raised by a single mother who worked herself to exhaustion. I told her that you two built everything from nothing and that Marcus made a choice to put family first. My mother's voice was fierce now, the same voice she'd used when defending her students or fighting for what was right. And you know what she said to me? She said, "But Grandma, Dad never made anything of himself." Those were her exact words. Like raising 2 children, creating a home, supporting his wife's dreams, like none of that was making something of himself. I felt sick. Marcus, sitting across from me, could hear my mother's voice through the phone. I watched his face crumple. I told her that she needed to do some serious soul-searching, my mother continued, and I told her not to come back to see me until she understood what she'd lost. Because Diana, baby, the way she talks about her father, that's not just disrespect. That's cruelty, and I didn't raise you to raise children who could be that cruel. After I hung up, Marcus and I sat in silence. The food on our plates had gone cold. "Your mother has always been my champion," Marcus said quietly, "even when my own children aren't. She loves you. We all do. Do we? Diana, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Anything. Did you ever feel like I was less than you because I stayed home, because I wasn't the breadwinner? I wanted to say no immediately to reassure him, but he deserved honesty. Sometimes, I admitted, not consciously, not in a way I ever would have said out loud, but sometimes, when I was closing big deals or getting recognition in my industry, I would come home and you'd be worried about Tyler's math homework or Chelsea's soccer practice, and I would think that what I was doing was more important. Marcus nodded slowly, like he'd expected this answer. I thought so. I could feel it sometimes. The way you'd dismiss my concerns about the kids, the way you'd talk over me in front of them, small things, but they added up. I'm sorry. I know you are. But Diana, here's what I need you to understand. Those small things, they taught our children that what I did didn't matter. They learned from you that money and career success were the measures of worth, and now we're reaping what we sowed. He was right, and it hurt to admit it. So what do? I asked. I don't know, but I know we can't keep going the way we were. Something has to change. Part 3. Rebuilding change came slowly and painfully. Marcus started seeing a therapist, working through decades of buried resentment and hurt. He talked about the choice he'd made to stay home, about the joy it had brought him, and the cost it had exacted. He talked about feeling invisible in his own home, about watching his children grow up to value the wrong things. I started therapy too, examining my own role in the family dynamics. It was uncomfortable work, facing the ways I had failed my husband, the ways I had let my success become a weapon that diminished him. We went to couples therapy together, learning how to communicate without the layers of unspoken resentment that had built up over the years. Learning how to be partners again, equals, instead of the unbalanced dynamic we'd fallen into. And slowly, we started to heal. Marcus decided to pursue some of his own interests with his inheritance. He'd always loved architecture, so he started taking classes again, updating his skills for the modern era. He joined a community board that focused on affordable housing, using his new resources to fund projects he believed in. For the first time in decades, I watched my husband come alive again. He had purpose beyond the home, beyond supporting my career. He was building something of his own, and it was beautiful to see. But the hole left by our children's absence was still there, a constant ache. 3 months after the confrontation, Chelsea showed up at our door unannounced. It was a Sunday morning, and Marcus and I were having coffee on the back patio, enjoying the unseasonably warm November weather. The doorbell rang, and I went to answer it. Chelsea stood there, and I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller, somehow, less polished. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer outfits. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. "Mom," she said, "can we talk? Both of you?" I looked back at Marcus. He nodded. We sat in the living room, the three of us, and the silence was heavy. Finally, Chelsea spoke. "I lost my job," she said. I felt my mother instincts kick in immediately, ready to offer help, to fix the problem. But Marcus put his hand on my knee, a gentle reminder to wait and listen. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said neutrally. "It was my fault. I made a mistake, a big one. I falsified some numbers on a client report because I was desperate to close a deal. I got caught. They fired me on the spot, and now I'm basically blacklisted in the industry." Chelsea's voice shook. "And when it happened, when I was cleaning out my desk and everyone was staring at me, all I could think about was how I'd thrown away my integrity for a job I didn't even like. For money and status that suddenly seemed so stupid." She looked at her father. "And I thought about you, Dad, about how you always had integrity, how you always chose what was right over what was easy, and I realized that I had become everything you weren't, everything you tried to teach me not to be." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Go on." "I called Tyler. I told him what happened, and you know what he said? He said I should call you guys and ask for money to tide me over. That's what he thought I should do. Just ask for money, like that would fix everything." Chelsea wiped her eyes. "But I didn't want to do that because I realized that's all I've ever done. Come to you guys with my hand out, taking and never giving anything back, never appreciating what you gave me." "What changed?" Marcus asked quietly. "I went to see Grandma. She told me about your childhood, Dad. Really told me, not the sanitized version I'd heard before. She told me about your mom working 2 jobs, about how you wore the same pair of shoes for 3 years because there wasn't money for new ones, about how you still got a scholarship to Northwestern, still made something of yourself despite having nothing." Chelsea's voice broke. "And she told me about the choice you made when I was born, how you'd just gotten passed over for a promotion at work because your white colleagues stole your design, how you were bitter and angry and feeling like you'd never get a fair shot. And then Mom got pregnant with Tyler, and you had to decide whether to keep fighting a system that didn't want you or to pour that energy into your family instead." Marcus's eyes were wet. I'd never heard him talk about that time in such detail, never knew how much that betrayal at work had hurt him. "She told me you chose us," Chelsea continued. "You chose to be present, to be a father, even though it meant giving up your dreams. And you did it with joy, Dad. Grandma said you never once complained, never once made Mom or us feel like we were a burden." "Your grandmother talks too much," Marcus said, but his voice was soft. "No, she doesn't talk enough. Or maybe I just never listened. Dad, I'm not here to ask for money. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because you have money now, but because I should have been sorry months ago, years ago. I should have seen what you were giving us all along." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Chelsea, I appreciate you saying this, but I need to know it's real. I need to know you've actually changed. Not just that you're scared because you lost your job." "I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the person you raised me to be instead of the person I became." She stood up to leave. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Back to my apartment. I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. I have some savings that'll last a few months if I'm careful. I'm going to look for a job, something that actually matters. Maybe nonprofit work or teaching, something that's about more than just making money." "Chelsea," Marcus said. She turned back. "Would you like to stay for breakfast?" I saw her face crumble with relief. "Really?" "It's not forgiveness," Marcus clarified. "Not yet. But it's a start." We made breakfast together, the 3 of us moving around the kitchen like we used to when Chelsea was young. There was still awkwardness, still pain, but there was also something new, or maybe something old that we'd forgotten. A connection, fragile, but real. Chelsea told us more about what had happened at work, about the pressure she'd felt to perform, about the culture that prioritized profits over people. She talked about the boyfriend she'd been planning to move in with, who had broken up with her the day she lost her job, proving that Marcus's concerns about him had been valid all along. "I was so stupid," she said. "I chose all the wrong things." "You're young," Marcus said. "You have time to choose differently now." After Chelsea left, promising to come back for dinner that week, Marcus and I sat together on the couch. "That was hard," he said, "but good?" "Maybe, I don't know yet. Talk is cheap. I need to see if she means it." "She will." I could see it in her eyes. She's really trying to change. "I hope so, because I can't go through this again. I can't keep being hurt by my own children." I held his hand and we sat in silence, both of us thinking about the long road ahead. Tyler was harder. He didn't come around, didn't call. We heard through Chelsea that he was angry, that he felt like Marcus was being ridiculous, that the whole thing was being blown out of proportion. "He doesn't get it," Chelsea told us during one of her weekly dinners, which had become a regular thing. "He thinks this is all about the money, about Dad suddenly having power. He doesn't understand that it's about respect." "Give him time," Marcus said, but I could see the pain in his eyes. Tyler had always been his buddy, his little man. The distance was killing him. It was Christmas Eve when Tyler finally showed up. Marcus and I were decorating the tree with Chelsea, something that had become fraught with emotion because it was the first holiday we'd spent without both kids in years. The doorbell rang and Tyler stood there with snow in his hair and uncertainty in his eyes. "Can I come in?" he asked. Marcus stepped aside and Tyler entered. He looked older somehow, more serious. The easy smile that usually played around his lips was gone. "I've been doing some thinking," Tyler said without preamble, "and talking to Chelsea, and I realized that you were right, Dad. I don't call unless I need something. I don't value what you did for us. I took you for granted." "Yes, you did," Marcus said simply. Tyler flinched. "I'm sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, Tyler. I told you that months ago. I need to see change." "I know. That's why I'm here. I quit my job." That got both our attention. "You what?" I said. "I quit. I was working 90-hour weeks at a startup, chasing the next funding round, the next big valuation, and I was miserable. I was becoming someone I didn't like, someone who only cared about money and success." Tyler looked at his father. "You know what made me realize it? I was on a video call with investors pitching our product, and this guy asked me why I was passionate about what we were building, and I realized I had no answer. I didn't care about the product. I just cared about the potential payout." He sat down heavily on the couch. "I realized I was doing exactly what you never did, Dad. I was chasing money at the expense of everything else, and I was becoming empty inside." "So what are you going to do?" Marcus asked. "I don't know yet, but I know I need to figure out what actually matters to me, what I want to build that's meaningful, not just profitable. And I was hoping maybe you could help me figure that out." I saw Marcus's face soften slightly. "This isn't about my money?" "No, it's about your wisdom, about learning from someone who actually made the right choices, even when they were hard." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tyler, I want to believe you, but you hurt me deeply. You dismissed everything I did for you, everything I gave up. That doesn't go away just because you suddenly had an epiphany." "I know, and I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed, to show you that I finally understand what you were trying to teach us all along." Chelsea spoke up. "He means it, Dad. We've been talking a lot, Tyler and me, really talking. Maybe for the first time in years. He's serious about this." Marcus looked at me. I nodded. "It's your call," I said. "Okay," Marcus said finally. "You can stay for Christmas, but Tyler, this is conditional. I'm not going to keep getting hurt by my own children. If you're serious about changing, you need to show me. Not with words, but with actions, with time and consistency and real effort." "I will," Tyler promised. "I swear I will." That Christmas was strange and wonderful and painful all at once. We were together as a family, but the wounds were still fresh, still healing. There were awkward moments and tense silences, but there were also genuine laughs and real conversations, the kind we hadn't had in years. On Christmas morning, Marcus gave each of the kids an envelope. Inside were checks, but not for the amounts they might have expected. "I'm giving you each $50,000, Marcus said. "But it comes with conditions. You can't use it for yourselves. You have to give it away to causes or people or organizations that need it more than you do. And I want you to report back to me about how you chose to use it and what you learned from the process." Chelsea and Tyler looked at the checks, then at their father. "This is a test," Tyler said. "No," Marcus corrected. "This is an opportunity to learn what it feels like to give instead of take, to think about others instead of just yourselves, to understand that wealth without purpose is worthless." Chelsea smiled, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Dad, not for the money, for not giving up on us." Part 4. The New Normal. The months that followed weren't easy. Healing never is. But slowly, painfully, beautifully, our family started to come back together. Chelsea took her $50,000 and donated it to programs that helped young people in underserved communities access college education. She told us it was her way of honoring what her father and grandmother had done, succeeding despite the odds stacked against them. She also got a job as a counselor at a nonprofit that helped first-generation college students navigate the system. The pay was a fraction of what she'd made in banking, but I could see a light in her eyes that had been missing before. "I'm making a difference," she told us at one of our weekly dinners. "Real, tangible difference in people's lives. And Dad, I finally understand what you used to say about success not being measured in dollars." Tyler used his money to fund a startup incubator specifically for entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. He said he wanted to help people who had good ideas but no access to capital, who were constantly overlooked by traditional investors. He also started spending more time with Marcus, learning about architecture, about design, about building things that lasted. They'd spend hours in Marcus's home office, Marcus teaching Tyler the principles he'd learned decades ago, Tyler bringing fresh perspectives and new technologies. "I'm learning so much from him," Tyler told me one day. "Not just about architecture, but about integrity, about making choices that matter." Marcus was different too. The inheritance had given him something more than money. It had given him validation, proof that his choices had value even in a world that measured worth in dollar signs. But more importantly, standing up to our children had given him his voice back. He still took care of the home, still loved cooking and gardening and all the domestic things he'd always done. But now he did them with pride instead of apology. And he pursued his own interests too. His architecture classes and his community work and his growing consultancy, helping design affordable housing projects. "I'm finally becoming who I was meant to be," he told me one night as we lay in bed. "Not just your husband, not just the kid's father, but Marcus. Fully myself." And us? We were rebuilding too, learning to be partners again, equals, respectful of each other's contributions and choices, learning to communicate better, to appreciate better, to love better. I cut back my hours at work, hired a CEO to run the day-to-day operations of my business. I wanted time with Marcus, time to rediscover the man I'd married, the man I'd loved before success and children and life had gotten in the way. We took trips together, just the two of us. We went to Paris and Rome and Tokyo, places we'd always dreamed of visiting but never had time for. We walked hand in hand through museums and gardens and ancient streets, talking about everything and nothing, reconnecting. "I almost lost you," I told him one evening as we watched the sunset over the Mediterranean. "You almost did," he agreed. "But you didn't. We fought for this, Diana. We fought for each other." 1 year after the confrontation with Chelsea, we decided to have a family meeting, all 4 of us together, something we hadn't done in a formal way since the kids were teenagers. We gathered in the living room on a Saturday afternoon, Marcus and I on one couch, Chelsea and Tyler on the other. "We wanted to talk to you about the future," Marcus said, "about money and inheritance and what happens when your mother and I are gone." Chelsea and Tyler exchanged glances but stayed quiet. "Your mother's will used to leave everything to the 2 of you," Marcus continued. "I had nothing of my own to leave, but things have changed. I have assets now, significant assets, and we've been thinking about how to handle this in a way that reflects our values." I took over. "We're not leaving you nothing. You're our children, and we love you, but we're not leaving you everything either. We're going to put the majority of our wealth into a foundation, one that will continue the work we've started with affordable housing, education, and community development. Each of you will receive enough to be comfortable," Marcus added. "Enough to buy a home, to have security, to pursue work you're passionate about without worrying about survival. But you won't be wealthy in the way you might have expected. You won't inherit millions." Tyler spoke first. "That's fair. More than fair, actually. You should use your money however you think is best." Chelsea nodded. "I agree. Honestly, I think inheriting too much would be the worst thing that could happen to us. We'd never have to work for anything, never have to grow. You're giving us exactly what we need instead of what we want." I felt tears spring to my eyes. This was the growth we'd hoped for, the understanding we'd fought for. "There's something else," Marcus said. "We're updating our wills to be equal. Diana's assets and mine will be merged, handled as one estate, because we're partners, equals, and that needs to be reflected legally as well as emotionally." He looked at me, and I saw love and gratitude in his eyes. For too long, I've been financially invisible in this family, and I allowed it. I let myself be diminished because I thought that's what sacrifice looked like. But I've learned that real sacrifice doesn't require self-erasure, that you can give of yourself without losing yourself. "We both learned that," I added. "I learned that partnership means honoring each other's contributions equally, whether they come with a paycheck or not. That staying home to raise children is just as valuable as building a business, more valuable in many ways." Chelsea was crying now. "I'm so sorry it took us so long to understand this." "Don't apologize," Marcus said. "Just do better, be better. And when you have children of your own someday, teach them what really matters. Teach them that wealth is meaningless without character, that success without compassion is just another kind of failure." "We will," Tyler promised. "We'll do better." We talked for hours that day, really talked, the way families should. We talked about our mistakes and our hopes, our regrets and our plans. We talked about the past and the future, about hurt and healing, about love and forgiveness. And somewhere in those conversations, I felt the last pieces of our broken family start to knit back together. Epilogue. What really matters. 2 years later, Marcus and I stood in the community center that bore his name. The Morrison Family Community Center, funded by his inheritance and my business profits, was a beautiful space designed by Marcus himself. It offered after-school programs, job training, counseling services, and affordable childcare for families in the old neighborhood where we'd both grown up. Chelsea worked there 2 days a week, mentoring young people. Tyler had moved back to Chicago to be closer to family, and he volunteered teaching entrepreneurship classes. "Look at what you built," I said to Marcus as we watched kids running through the gym, their laughter echoing off the walls. "What we built," he corrected, "all of us together." He was right. This place represented everything we'd learned, everything we'd fought for. It was proof that wealth meant nothing if you didn't use it to make the world better. That success was measured not in dollars, but in lives touched, in differences made, in love given freely. Chelsea and Tyler joined us, both of them wearing volunteer t-shirts, both of them happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Dad," Chelsea said, "Mrs. Johnson was just telling me about how her daughter got accepted to college because of your scholarship program. She was crying. She said you changed her family's life." Marcus smiled, and I saw peace in his face. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Giving others the opportunities we were given, paying it forward. Tyler pulled up something on his phone. "And look at this, Dad. The startup you advised, the one founded by those kids from the South Side, they just got their first major contract. They're going to hire 15 people from the community. They did that themselves," Marcus said. "I just gave them some guidance." "You did more than that," Tyler insisted. "You believed in them when no one else would. You taught them that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go." Later that evening, after the center had closed and we'd said goodbye to Chelsea and Tyler, Marcus and I drove home in comfortable silence. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your father hadn't left you that money?" I asked. Marcus thought about it. "Sometimes. Part of me wishes things had changed without it, that our kids would have realized what mattered without that catalyst. But then, I think maybe everything happened the way it needed to. Maybe I needed that validation, that proof that I had value beyond what I'd given up. And maybe Chelsea and Tyler needed that wake-up call to realize how lost they'd become. Do you think they've really changed, or do you still worry? I think people are always growing, always becoming. Chelsea and Tyler aren't perfect. They still stumble sometimes, still fall back into old patterns. But they're trying. They're aware now in a way they weren't before. And that awareness makes all the difference. We pulled into our driveway and Marcus looked at our home, the house we'd built together through decades of partnership and love and struggle. "You know what I'm most proud of?" he said. "What?" "Not the money, not the community center, not even the fact that our kids came back to us. I'm most proud that we didn't give up. When things were at their worst, when our family was fractured and it felt like we'd failed at the most important job we'd ever had, we didn't quit. We fought for each other. We fought for our kids. We fought for the values we believed in." I took his hand. "We're not done fighting. There will be more challenges, more obstacles. Life doesn't suddenly become easy just because you've learned some lessons." "I know, but now I know we can face them together, as equals, as partners." We went inside and I thought about everything we'd been through. The confrontation with Chelsea that had started this whole journey, the painful process of recognizing our own failures as parents, the slow, difficult work of rebuilding relationships that had been broken. And I thought about that moment standing on the stairs 2 years ago, hearing my daughter say those cruel words to her father, hearing her tell him he was irrelevant, that he had nothing to offer, that he didn't matter. If someone had told me then that we'd end up here, closer as a family than we'd been in years, working together to make a difference in the world, I don't know if I would have believed them. The gap seemed too wide, the hurt too deep, but we'd bridged it. Through honesty and accountability, through boundaries and consequences, through love that was willing to be tough when it needed to be. We'd bridged it. Marcus was right. We weren't done. Life would continue to test us, to challenge us, to push us toward growth or regression. But we were ready now. We had learned what mattered. We had learned that wealth without character is worthless, that success without compassion is hollow, that love without respect is poison. We had learned finally what it meant to be a family. And in the end, that was worth more than any inheritance, any amount of money, any measure of worldly success. Because love, real love, the kind that sees you and values you and honors your sacrifices, that kind of love is the only wealth that truly matters. That's what my daughter had almost thrown away with those 4 words, "You'll get nothing from us." But thankfully, that's not how our story ended. It ended with understanding, with growth, with a family reunited and stronger for having been broken. It ended with love winning, not because love always wins automatically, but because we fought for it. Because we refused to let money and ego and pride destroy what mattered most. Because we finally understood that the richest people aren't those with the most money. The richest people are those who know what truly matters and have the courage to live accordingly. And we, all 4 of us, were finally learning to be rich in the ways that counted. The end. Sometimes the greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't money. It's the lesson that character matters more than wealth, that love requires respect, and that success means nothing if we lose ourselves in the pursuit of it. My family learned this the hard way, but we learned it together, and that made all the difference.